Hello, Clementine here with another Topic of the Week video. This week is another Legend of Korra topic. And this topic comes from a Tumblr anon. They asked, why Korra never became as spiritual as you think she did? Korra and spirituality are not something that you can reasonably use in the same sentence. Oh gosh, where do I even start with this? I'll start in episode 1. Way back in the pilot episode of Legend of Korra, it is firmly established that Korra is not good with spiritual stuff. And it's outright stated by one of the White Lotus Masters that Korra has excelled in the physical aspects of her bending. You know, she's an excellent firebender, she's an excellent waterbender, and she's an excellent earthbender. But she has completely skipped out entirely on the spiritual aspect. This was part of a thing of setting her as an opposite of Aang. Something that I have stated multiple times I'm totally okay with. I like the idea of her being different than Aang. And her being the opposite of Aang, so where Aang was an airbender and Aang was very in tune with spirituality and he started with airbending, Korra starts with the other three elements, no spirituality, and compared to Aang's reluctance, she has a very gung-ho attitude at being the Avatar. Korra's a very interesting character, and in the start, this flaw is one of the biggest, things that I looked forward to her growing with. When you have a character, you need to have if you have a character who's going to stick around, you need to have some kind of reason for them to be in the show. Korra, being the main character, needed subplots. What is going to be a running story for her outside of, each individual episode? Episode 1 of Legend of Korra started things off. Her plots, she has 2 plots. Learning airbending and learning spirituality. And then, the actual plot. But those are her personal subplots. Spirituality and airbending are, of course, tied together, given that airbending and the teachings of the air nomads / air acolytes is very steeped in spirituality. So obviously Korra trained with Tenzin to learn, spirituality, and found it difficult. There were a lot of good things in the beginning, like her using pro-bending to learn airbending, which I thought was a brilliant move, and something that I really wish the show capitalized on. Like, this could have been given a point to the pro-bending arc. But you have Korra learning things through non-standard, non-traditional teaching styles. And we could have had her learn spirituality. The problem is she never learned spirituality. Spirituality happened to her when it was convenient to the plot. Like when she contacts Aang in Out of the Past. I think that was episode 9? Yes, I think it was episode 9. And then at the very end of book 1, and Aang is just like, hey, Korra, I'm Aang. I'm here to give you your bending back. And I'm here to give you the Avatar state fully mastered. And I taught you energy bending too. What? This is something that I got an ask on Tumblr not too long ago about how Legend of Korra basically did not match up with any of the themes of of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it felt very shallow because of it. And that's true. When Avatar: The Last Airbending talked about spirituality, it was very meaningful. When Iroh talked about when he was talking to Zuko about the elements, and he was talking about how basically all the elements coincide. He talks to Zuko about how he created the lightning redirection technique based off of waterbending. And then, Zuko's just like, this sounds like Avatar talk. And it's like, and this is the talk about spirituality. When Aang talks about how valuable life is and how Aang, even though his past lives tell him to kill Ozai, he refused to kill Ozai because he felt it went against the core of his being. You know, that spirituality. When he was with Guru Patik and he's learning how to unblock his chakra points. So what else I've seen The Last Airbender, but when he's learning to basically master the avatar state, it's spirituality stuff. His chakras, his inner conflicts, all this stuff is spirituality, and it had weight behind it because it meant something. In Legend of Korra, nothing means anything. Korra literally just does stuff, and the plot happens. That's the best way to describe it. And when Korra wants something to happen, something will happen. When Korra needs something to happen to her, something will happen to her. Oh, she got kidnapped because of the plot. Oh, she got rescued because of the plot. And now she's back because of the plot. Does this have any effect on her character? Not at all. Korra's mastered her inner self and turned into Godzilla. Because you can do that. As long as you believe in the heart of the cards. And hell, even at the ending of Book 2, when Jinora turns into a Jinora Ex Machina and literally just saves the day by doing something, and then Korra breaks the rules by killing Vatu, despite the fact that you're not supposed to be able to do that, and he kills Rava, but you're not supposed to be able to do that, and just... And then we have Korra's wonderful character development in Book 3, when she's just like, everyone has to do what I say because I basically caused mass destruction to Republic City, so I'm obviously the only person who knows what to do. Because this is spirituality. This lacks none of the conflict from when Aang was dealing with the panda spirit that was mad because of the forest, and Aang talked about the forest, and there was talk about the forest and how the forest will regrow. We don't get any of that in Legend of Korra. The spirituality is vapid. So naturally, Korra's spirituality is just as vapid. She just gets these plot power-ups whenever. And it just happens. Like, she gets metal bending. Hey, she's the first metal bending avatar, because obviously Aang didn't learn this, despite the fact that he was very good friends with the person who invented metal bending. In fact, she was his earthbending teacher. I mean, and everything about Korra happens like that. Everything happens just because Brian and Mike said this had to happen. Oh, the plot needs to happen. Therefore, something needs to happen to Korra. When the show's constantly trying to tell us that she learned a lesson in spirituality, what the show fails to do is actually show her learning a lesson in spirituality. In Book 2, when she goes to the spirit world and she turns into a child, she doesn't learn anything. And people acted like she had this great epiphany in her character development. And all that happened was that she turned into a child for an episode or two, and then turned back into an adult, and she's just like, I learned my lessons. I'm now going to make decisions for the entirety of the world, and then completely give up all of my power, and then in the next season, I'm going to demand all that power back. There would have been, if there's something I hate more than bad plot points, it's bad plot points that are constantly inconsistent with each other. If they had kept consistency, if Korra actually had a character built up, there wouldn't be as many issues with her character. But the fact that she constantly backpedals on her character, and her character constantly just runs into these circular motions of development. Her spirituality, she's the same level of spirituality in episode 1 as she does in the finale of Book 4. That is a problem. If you take Aang from the very first episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Boy in the Iceberg, and you compare it to Sozin's Comet Part 4, you see a stark difference in his character. Hell, you'd see a stark difference in just the ending of Book 1. And then you see in Book 2. You see, he was willing to give up Katara to basically fulfill his role as the Avatar. And you get motion to that. You get a reason for it. He's doing this stuff for a reason. This stuff is developing this character. Korra never gets that. This is why she never became spiritual. This is why I don't believe she became spiritual at all. It's because she never did anything spiritual. She basically just ran around demanding people obey her. Really. Especially did that in book 3 to Raiko. She basically always demanded that Raiko always do what she's saying. Then the show was trying to act like he's some 2-bit sleazy politician for not bending to Korra's will. And it's like, I support that guy more than her. Yeah. And the real problem with Korra's lack of spirituality is that really this... When you compare it to the Avatar: The Last Airbender, you really see how vapid Korra's character is, especially in the spirituality department. Now, Aang, yes, was already very spiritual. Even in book 1, he was able, he's very spiritual. That's just his culture. That's the air nomads were very spiritual people. But the fact that he was still able to learn stuff and grow more spiritual shows you that no matter what, there's always something that your character can learn. And Korra never learned that. Korra never had any spirituality to her. She basically punched her problems until they went away. Which is how all of her problems got solved. It's like... And when you base it, and here's actually one of the core sources of this issue, that when Brian and Mike wrote these conflicts, they wrote every single conflict as a physical conflict, an actual fight. Her character never had any spirituality because she didn't need to. As long as she could punch her problems away, she was A-okay. She punched her problems in book 1. She punched her problems in book 2. She punched her problems in book 3. And she punched her problems in book 4. And then Kavira cried. When she, in book 4, made an attempt to be spiritual. And ironically, despite the fact that book 2 calls itself Spirit, it's the least spiritual book of all. I would say the most spiritual book was book 1. Honestly, it's the only book. It's the only season that had any real lessons to it. I mean, granted, these lessons were all completely wasted, and by the end of the season, you realize that they meant absolutely nothing. But still, it made some effort. And if you watch the first 4 episodes, you could actually say this is pretty good. And Korra's learning lessons, especially when Korra actually came out and admitted to Tenzin that she's terrified of Amon and she's scared. Wow, Korra opening up? Korra learning that, that airbending training is something that's not only applicable to just training, that she can use it in something that actually interests her? Oh, wow, we're exploring all these different dynamics. Oh, no, it's gone because we have Deus Ex Machinas. Even in book 2, despite the fact that book 2 uses the word spirituality, I need people to be more spiritual, it uses that a lot, and it talks about that a lot. It doesn't actually do it. In fact, Unalaq is it's the least spiritual villain. Honestly, the most spiritual villain was freaking Zahir, and that man is one of the worst villains ever. He's probably, I would argue, outside of Unalaq, he's the most worthless villain in the entirety of Legend of Korra. But he's more spiritual than Unalaq, and Unalaq's supposed to be super spiritual expert. Because Unalaq turned into the Dark Avatar, and turned into a monster, and Korra grew to Godzilla, and became Korrazilla, and she punched him until he died. I mean, geez. Especially with Amon, you have the whole conflict of the equalists. You have social social oppression. You have the bending privileges, and you have all this interesting conflicts. And they never talk this out. They literally just treat Amon as evil. And this is another problem, is the severe black and white morality. There's never any real conflict about what to do, because you can always say X person is bad, Y person is good, and Korra is always good. Despite the fact that the show basically sets itself up for Korra to be on the wrong side of a conflict, she never experiences any internal strife. She can't grow spiritually if she doesn't have any kind of internal conflict. Any internal conflict she has lasts for all of 5 seconds before it moves on and justifies Korra's own opinions, because the show literally revolves around protagonist-centered morality. And it's freaking ridiculous. And it's disappointing, really. Korra could have been a much more spiritual character. I would have loved if by the end of book 1, 2, 3, 4, Korra, I could legitimately look at Korra and say, she's become more spiritual. She's become a better character. I wish I could say that, but I can't. Book 4, book 1, book 2, less book 3, because basically Korra was completely broken in the end of book 3. And then book 4, I'll try to convince you that Korra has grown. She's become the great Avatar. Oh, look at how smart she is. Ugh. It's exhausting. I mean, and like many people have said, Legend of Korra is a show revolving on show don't tell. And they or tell don't show. It breaks the show don't tell rule. It's constantly telling you Korra is spiritual, but when you look at her, she looks like the same snot-nosed brat she was in the beginning of book 1. No character development, no growth in spirituality, no lessons learned, because the show goes out of its way to prove her right. Hey, I don't like this guy. Oh, this guy turns out to be evil, so now I don't have any conflicts. Hey, Amon actually had some legitimately good points. Who cares if he's psychotic? He's got some good points, and the show doesn't ever address this. Korra doesn't have any internal strife. Aang, a 12-year-old boy, had to let go of a girl he had a massive crush on, and he was in love with, because he was putting that aside to do his duties as the Avatar. Korra never has any struggles like this, and because of that, she never faces any internal strife, and she never has any chance of growth. So, of course, no spirituality growth. And that's really all that she wrote. It's a lack of spirituality because she was never given a chance to be spiritual. And Brian and Mike themselves don't understand spirituality at all, on any level. Not even some faux spirituality. It's literally nothing. It's like, you guys, honestly, like, the lessons that are taught in the second episode, the first couple episodes, I am legitimately wondering if Brian and Mike actually took those episodes and then wrote the rest on their own, because honestly, the writing is just so dramatically better, and it actually has elements of spirituality, and it shows Tenzin teaching these lessons to Korra, which really should have been a big part of book 1, but, we need to make room for love triangles, because it's much more important than spirituality. I think I'm about done with this episode. I think I rambled on about spirituality and Legend of Korra, or the lack thereof, for long enough. Yes, I'll be posting last week's topic video right here, and I'll be posting next week's topic video here when I get that done next week. If you want to submit a topic, just, if you're on YouTube, comment below on whatever topic you want me to talk about, and if you're on Tumblr, send me an ask and put topic : then whatever you want me to say or talk about. Just make sure that the topic is fictional. It's about something fictional, not a real world topic. That it's enough of a topic that I can talk about, and don't just say, why do you like X, or what do you think about Y? Just not something that general. And I have rules that I will be posting below, and just you can check those out if you want to see, what kind of topics I want. And you can also peruse my previous topic videos for a general idea of what kind of topics I like to talk about. So, thank you for watching, and watch next week's topic video.